Hello, friends. We are starting a new series in English, The Greatest Economist. This topic we are discussing the father of scientific socialisms and the father of communisms. We know about Karl Marx. He was worked in German philosopher, economist, historian, journalist, and socialist. In this series, we will discuss every sides of the greatest economist, his thoughts, his life up and downs, and how they achieved success in this field. As economists, they analyze the various topics related to how the country get more growth related GDP, per capita income, production, distribution, and consumption. And they make the new concept, new theory for the nation growth. In this series, the first topic was discussed about Adam Smith, second David Ricardo, third topic we are discuss about Amartya Kumar Sen, and this is the fourth topic on Karl Marx. Karl Marx held in the high esteem and respected as a real prophet by the million of people. The Marxian analysis is the greatest examination of the process of economic development. He expected capitalist change to the breakdown because of the sociological reasons and not due to economic stagnation, and only after the very high degree of development in attained. His famous book Das Kapital is known as the Bible of Socialism, is published 1867. He presented the process of the growth and collapse of the capital economy. Karl Marx was a prominent thinker who wrote in the topic related to economics, political economy, and society. Born in Germany, Marx spent much of time in London where he wrote many famous works including the Communist Manifesto and Capital, known as Das Kapital. Marx often collaborated with the longtime friend and social theorist Friedrich Engels. Marx is known for the revolutionary writing favoring the socialisms and communist revolution. While this time, Marxism and Marxism economics have been largely rejected by the mainstream today, many of the Marx critics and the capitalism remain relevant today. Karl Marx was inspired by the classical political economists such as Adam Smith and David Ricardo, while his own branch of economics, Marxism economics, is not a favor among the modern mainstream thoughts. Marx's ideas have greatly impact societies, most prominently in communist projects such as those in the USSR, China, and Cuba. Among the modern thinkers, Marx is still very influential in the field of sociology, political economy, and stand of the heterodox economics. Karl Marx is best known for the theories that lead to the development of the Marxism. This idea also served as the basis of communism. His book Das Kapital and the Communist Manifesto form the basis of the Marxism. Karl Marx remained controversial, but his writings still remain relevant today, even as the mainstream economics has relegated Marxism as a heterodox school of thoughts. Marx did have a lot to say about the capitalist system of the production and roundly critiques it for generating social and wealth inequalities, negative externalities, and the class struggle. Ultimately, Karl Marx's predictions about the impending collapse of the capital and the communist revolution that would follow proved incorrect. This had led many to the discount Marx and Marxism thoughts, but always Marx's insight remained influential and inspiring to others. To know more basic information about Karl Marx, his full name was Karl Heinrich Marx, born 5th May 1818, Trier City, Kingdom of Prussia in Germany, death 14 March 1883. London. Nationality is Persian. Time period is 1818 to 1845. Stateless after 1845. Education: University of Bonn, University of Berlin, and University of Jena, where he completed his PhD in 1841. His wife name is Jenny. His father name was Heinrich Marx, and mother name was Henriette Presburg. His era is 19th century philosophy. Regions: Western philosophy. His work is thesis, is the difference between the Democritian and Epicurean philosophy of nature, 1841. His main interest was philosophy, economics, history, and politics. His notable ideas is Marxist terminology, value from the contribution to dialectic, and the Marxian critiques of the political economy, class conflict, alienation, exploitation of the worker, materialistic conception of the history. Karl Marx was born in Germany in 1818 in middle class of the Jewish family. During his childhood, his family converted to the Protestantism. Marx studied law, history, and philosophy in the different German universities like Bonn, Berlin, and Jena. He received his PhD degree at the age of 23. Karl Marx was pioneer of one of the many societies, a socialist ideologist and pioneer of the philosophy of the Communist Revolution in Russia in 1918 and Communist Revolution in the China in 1949. Karl Marx, who gave the birth to the communist philosophy by making the revolutionary slogan "Worker of the world, unite." Marx fell in love with his wife, Jenny, and wrote many poems on her. This form of the Marx has not come before us so far. His poems were published in the Germany only in the last decade, but appeared in the English very late, around 1975. Many of those poems were translated by the poet Sudhakar Borkar in 1980s, but they could not become the famous. Karl Marx, born in the Trier in the Kingdom of the Persia in German, Marx studied at the universities of the Bonn, Berlin, and Jena, and received the doctorate in philosophy in 1841. A young Hegelian, he was influenced by the philosophy of the George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, and both the critics and they developed the Hegel's ideas in the work such the German ideology in 1846. Marx wrote his economic and philosophic manuscript and they met the Eagles, a lifelong friends, and they collaborated after moving to Brussels in 1845. They were active in Communism League and 1848 wrote the Communist Manifesto, which expressed Marx's ideas and the end of the call for revolution. So we are now discussing about his best friend and every stages he helped to Karl Marx. We are discussing about Friedrich Engels. He was German philosopher, political theorist, historian, journalist, and revolutionary socialist. He was also a businessman. His basic information about so he born in 28 November 1820 in Persia. His death 5th August 1895, age 874. He worked in political parties, communist correspondence committees, Communist League, and International Working Men's Association. His notable work, The Condition of the Working Class in the England, Anti-Duhring, Socialism, the German Ideology, and Communist Manifesto. He worked his era in 19th century as a philosopher, region Western philosophy. His main interest is political philosophy, political economy, class struggle, and criticisms of the capitalism. His main notable ideas work in alienation, exploitation of the worker, dialectic materialism, historical materialism, false consciousness. Friedrich Hegel he was the closest associate of the Karl Marx and one of the founder of the classical socialism. Friedrich entered his father's business at age was 17, first of the professional candidate, then the military career in the Persian army, and from 1848 to 1869. He worked successfully in the employee, partner, and director in his father's textile mill in the Manchester. Then he retired from his business at age of 59 and devoted the rest of his life to political and working writing on socialist. Marx has been described as one of the most influential figures in human society, and his work has been both lauded and criticized. Marxism has a major influence on the socialist thoughts and political movement, and during the 20th century, revolutionary governments identified the Marxism took the power in the many countries and established the socialist state, including the Soviet Union and the People's Republic of China. A number of the theoretical variants such as Leninism, Stalinism, and Maoism has been developed. In Karl Marx's life, one name was every time attached and we are not ignored to Hegel. Hegel and Marx are the two prominent German philosophers of the 19th century who are often seated together. The main reason for this is Hegel's widely recognized influence of the Marx, both the philosopher and his theory about the dynamic underlying the human history. Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel was German philosopher and one of the most influential figures of German ideology. Hegel's main interest was metaphysics, philosophy of the art, philosophy of history, philosophy of religious, political philosophy, history of philosophy. Hegel was notable work in the Phenomenology of the Spirit, Science of Logic, Encyclopedia of the Philosophical Science, Elements of the Philosophy of the Rights. Karl Marx and Friedrich Hegel adopted Hegel's definition and applied its the social and economic processes. Hegel identifiably dialectic as a tendency toward the self-negation is the result of the conflicts between its inherent contradictory aspect. Hegel's social and political thoughts are the concept of the freedom, reason, self-awareness, and recognition. He claimed that the history is a rational process of the development and that is can be understood and made the intelligible of the everyone willing to the look at the rationally, which means looking the comprehensively and with the clear purpose as the starring of this the world soul. Now we discuss all the concepts of the Karl Marx in one by one. First topic we discuss Marxism. Karl Marx in the core ideas, a utopian vision of the just society for the some, blueprint for the totalitarianism, religious for the other Marxism thoughts in the lead to the other communist manifesto and the three-volume of Das Kapital. Marxism is one of the most significant theories and philosophy that has contributed much to the modern world. German philosopher Karl Marx helped to the working the class to the question injustice enforce upon them the thoughts their the wages, lifestyle and oppressions. In shortly, Marxism for the many is the beginning of the process and evolution. Marx believed that installing his ideology in the minds of people like him would one day make a world in idea classes society. Marxism is a social, economic, and political philosophy that analyzes the impact of the ruling class on the laborer, leading to uneven distribution of the wealth and privileges in the society. Simultaneously, the work to the protest on injustice. The theory was formulated by the Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels in this work, the Communist Manifesto. It was the they created during the age of the imperialism, rooting from their own struggle as a member of the proletariat. According to Marx, history demonstrates the existence of the class struggle centuries earlier. He explained the struggle thoughts of six stages. Karl Marx the given the five stages of the Marxism, and six is he assumed utopian vision of the society for the blueprint. First stages is primitive communism, second imperialism, third feudalism, fourth capitalism, and fifth socialism. And sixth stage is utopian is communism. We discuss the first stages primitive communism. Men perform the same economic function, hunting, gathering. They work together in the order of the survive. There was no private property and there were no classes. Eventually, the most successful hunting gathering gained power and control over the other. Second stages in imperialism. The strong man rule. He began by the owning all the land, but when the threatened by the outsides, he would grant land to others to retain for the military service. A new land owning the aristocracy was therefore created. Third stage is feudalism. Land was owned by the aristocracy who exploited the peasantry whose work it. There was a surplus of the food which is aristocracy sold to the other, creating the class of merchants and capitalists who wanted to share political power. Four stages is capitalism. The wealthy merchant and the factory owner obtained the political power and exploited the worker as the proletariat because of politically aware they would rise up the other through the bourgeois government. Stages 5 is clear about the socialism. There will be dictatorship of these the proletariat as the worker organization redistributed food, goods and service fairly according to need, and the profit were the shared by all. The middle classes would come to the understand the equality was superior to the private ownership. And the last stages is communism. Everyone will join the together for the common goods. Money and government will no longer needed as a society will be a classless. As all the countries reach this stage, the world will become the stateless and the competition and the wars would cease. Communism means the from each according to his ability to each according to his need. Karl Marx, when the grew up in the era which the Industrial Revolution had just begun, laborers worked in the factory very bad condition. Owners of these factories were often rich people who exploited their the worker. He imagined the utopia means the communism means the imaginary world. Karl Marx said that the workers together can overthrow the monarchy that exists. However, he is the king of the government exit. So the society will be built there the means of the production will not be owned by the single owner, but rather than entire public. In this utopia is clear about the no any class exit, no discrimination, no races, no competition, no religious, no inherited wealth, no private ownership, provided us the free education and health, everyone will be the owner of the everything. Mode of production. The main is the concept that the Marx identify they include the primitive communism, slave society, feudalism, capitalism, communism. In these the stages of the production, people interact with the nature and production in the different way. Any surplus from this production was distributed differently. Marx propounded by the humanity first began. Living in primitive communism, societies, then the come to the ancient societies as the Rome and Greece, which were the base of the ruling class of the citizens and the class of the slave. Then the feudalism, which was the base on the noble and serf. Then the capitalism, which based on the capitalist and the working classes. In the idea of this future communist society, Marx explained the classes will no longer exist, and therefore the exploitations of the class by another is abolished. Next point is historical materialism. Historical materialism theory of the history associated with this the German economics and philosopher Karl Marx and his colleague Friedrich Hegel. This theory postulated that all the institutional of the human society are the outgrowth of his economic activity. Consequently, social and political changes occur when those the institutional case reflect the mode of production. This know the economic function. Historical materialism is rooted in the Marx and Hegel philosophy of the dialectical materialism, which posted that all the things of the develop through the materialism contradictions. Historical materialism applies the logical of the dialectical materialism to human civilization. All the human beings must engage of the economic activity for the necessities of the life. In this aggregate, this requirement means that every society relate the mode of production. All institutional of that the society must therefore follow from the mode, adapt, to eat, to eliminate it. This condition is the motor of history and the reason why the society disappear over time. The modes of production evolve, they face the new contradictions that lead to their the replacement by other, more advanced economic system, which is the turn of the developed new societies. In this case of feudalism, for this instance, monarchs and their the vassals needed in the trade in increase their the wealth, but trade result in the emergence of the merchant class, which proceed to demand political rights, thereby ushering the mercantilism and the early stages of capitalism. The general ideas of the society put forth by the Karl Marx are the known as the historical materialism theory. He based his idea on these fundamentals of the materialism. He believed that the material condition and or the economic factor affect the society, structure and development. Materialism is simply a matter of the material reality that's the form of the base for any changes. He stated that the material condition comprise the production essentially by the technological means that this production force and the relations form the human society. Karl Marx's theory is known as the historical materialism, as he is the trace the evolution of the human society from the one stages to another, while the interpreting on the economic materialism basis that the theory of the historical materialism stated how the society superstructure is based on the infrastructure of the economy and economics. According to Karl Marx, this theory of the changes in society are linear, and every society has been the thought changes while the marching forward. He described these stages: primitive communism, slavery, feudalism, capitalism, socialism, and then communism. The historical materialism theory given by the Karl Marx, some of the development and the consequence of these the new forces of material production that account for human history. Next point is Marxism concept of economic development. In Marxism theory, production means that the generate of the value. Thus, the economic development is a process of the more value generating. Labor generate value, but high level of production is a possible through more the and more capital accumulation and the technological improvement. At the start, growth under the capitalism, generation of the value and accumulation of the capital underwent at the high rate. After the reaching the peak, there is a concentration of these the capital associated with the falling rate of the profit. In turn, they reduce the rate of investment and the surge rate of the economic growth. Unemployment increases, class conflict increases, labor conflicts start, and there the class revolt. Ultimately, there was the downfall of the capitalism and the rise of the socialism. Next point is the law of fetishism of the commodities. Fetishism means that the mystical character and the contradictory nature possessed by the commodities. Every commodity has a true value use and the value for the consumer and exchange value for the owner. According to the Marx, commodity was the mysterious and because the social character of this labor presented in the commodity apparel to the producer as the objective one. To quote Marx, this fetishism of this commodity has been origin in the peculiar society character of the labor that produced them. To Marx, this social character of the labor demanded that the produced product must be not only the useful to him but useful to other. It should have the common quality. Next point is labor theory of value. Marx considered the labor theory of value necessary step to arrive at the theory of surplus value which they explain to exploitation nature to of the capitalist society. In the capitalist society, a commodity is defined as the carrier of this value and exchange value. As the carrier of this value, it is satisfied the human want. As the carrier of the exchange value is processes as the quantitative relation with the other commodities. Along with this double character of the commodity, there is a corresponding twofold nature of the labor. The one is useful labor and the other is abstract human labor. Useful labor produces a commodity that satisfies the human wants. Variety of the human wants require variety of the use values, but labor alone cannot produce the value. Matter provided materialism on which the labor is the exercise. Beside these things may be possess use value but may not require labor to produce. Example: air, water, soil are the some example. Karl Marx believed in the labor theory of value to explain the relative difference in the market prices. This theory stated that the value of the produced economic goods can be measured objectively by the average number of the labor hour required to the produce it. In other words, if the table take the twist as a long make a chair, their table should be considered the twist as valuable. Next point is theory of surplus value. The theory of surplus value is a cornerstone of the Marx economics theory. It is to provide the framework on the basis of the which the Marx has built up his theory of capital accumulation. To Marx, in the capitalism, production was not a simply production of the commodities but was the production of the surplus value. The worker produced not for the himself but the capitalist. For the capitalist point of view, that the labor alone is a productive whose the produce a surplus. Under the capitalism, labor power is the become the commodity and is bought and sold in the market. The main aim of the capitalist is to maximize profit earn. It is possible for him because the labor power has the peculiar character of the being able to the create more value than is needed for its own production. In other words, the worker can produce more in day labor than is needed of his own subsistence. The capitalists pay only those the wages which the latter can purchase and means of the subsistence. Thus, the Marx divided labor into the kind necessary labor and surplus labor. Next point is alienation. This term is used to describe the separation of the people from the particular commodity or people. The alienation could be due to the different norms, values, and the social relation. The people who are the alienated from the society do not follow the mainstream. There are the type of the people who are isolated from the society known as the alienation. The name is itself of sufficient to the define this term. The worker are the socially isolated from the product which they manufactured. Only the capitalists receive the hard-earned money of the worker. The worker did not the receive their the money from the hard work. All these the agreements are the made through the wages labor agreement. The worker don't to do labor work in this the wish. They are the forced to so because they are the left with the another option. They have the no option for the wages are the essential for this the sake of the laborer lives. The laborers are the alienated for this their the soul. They are not given the fundamental freedom of the doing what they want to. Instead, they are the forced to do work the direct by their masters. There is the environmental of the competition among the worker in which they are the forced to sell the work at the lower cost available. Alienation of the worker from their product. According to this type of alienation, the worker is not responsible for this product they create. The product entirely belong to the capitalist and belong to the worker in no way. The capitalists are the only authority over the product created by the workers. Alienation of the worker from the act of the production. Workers are the forced to manufacture the goods and service. The forceful production of these goods and service does not satisfy the worker. Laborers are the forced to take these the tasks as their the mean of survive because they have no other work to survive upon. Alienation of this worker from this species essence. According to the capitalist mode of the production, particular person always loses his right to the self-development because they are the forced to the sell the labor power in the market for the sake of living. Alienation of this worker from the worker a market create due to the competition among the other worker for the labor power. Next point is class struggle. Marx inherited this idea of the class and class struggle from the utopian socialism. In Marx's view, the dialectical nature of the history is expressed in the class struggle. With the development of the capitalism, the class struggle takes the acute from two basis classes around which the other less important classes are the group oppose each other, the capitalist system and the owner of the means of production, bourgeoisie and the worker proletariat. The bourgeoisie produce its own grave diggers. The fall of these the bourgeoisie and the victory of the proletariat are the equally inevitable. When the people have become aware of these the losses, there the alienation is a universal non-human situation. It will be a possible for this the process of the radical transformations of their the situation by the revolution. This revolution will be the prelude to the establishment of the communism and the range the liberty required in the place of the old bourgeoisie society which the classes and the class antagonists. There will be a association with the free development of each is the condition for the free development of all. Next point is theory of capitalist exploitation. According to the Marx, in capitalist society, there are the two classes of the people, capitalist and worker. In the capitalist society, all the means of production are owned by the capitalist. The worker, on the other hand, sell their the labor power to the capitalist. The capitalist produce the community with the application of the labor to the machinery and the raw material. Large scale production create more employment opportunities to the worker. The act of the production create the surplus. When the wages are the paid less than the market value, exploitation arise. But over the production is another characteristic features of the capitalist in the which goods and the produce for the market. So when the market contracts, unemployment of the worker emerges again. When the market expand, labor power is required again. So such the labor who are the temporary employed form of the industry reserve army. In this industrial reserve army, the farmer who are the expelled from the land also join. It should be noted that the Marx economics, the capital means the money used the exploitation. In the pre-capitalist society, the producer sell his commodities for the money. With the money, he buy the commodities of the other producers for the consumption purpose. Here, money simply performed the medium of the exchange function. It was not used for the exploitation for anyone, but under the capitalism, production is done for profit. Next point is law of capitalist accumulation. According to Marx, is the surplus value that create the capital accumulation. Capitalists choose the method of the increasing the productivity of the labor to maximize their the profit. In the order to make improvement in the productivity of the labor, the capitalists save the surplus value. They reinvest it to the acquire large stock of capital and thus they accumulate the capital. Next point is very important, Das Kapital. Marx's masterpiece, the Das Kapital, the Bible of the working class, as it was officially described in the resolutions of this the International Working Men Association, was published in 1867 in Berlin and received the second edition in 1873. Only the first volume was the completed and published in by Marx in lifetime his. The second and third volume, unfinished by the Marx, but were edited by the Friedrich Hegel and published in 1885 and 1894. The economic categories and the employ were those the classical British economist David Ricardo, but Marx used them in the accordance with the dialectical method of the argue that the bourgeoisie society, like every social organism, must follow the inevitable path of the development thought of the working such the immediate tendencies of the declining rate of profit capitalism will die in be the replaced by the another higher society. The most memorable pages in Das Kapital are the descriptive pages culled from the Parliamental Blue books on the misery of these English working class. Marx believed that this misery would increase while at the same time of the monopoly of the market value become the fatal upon the production until finally the nil of the capitalist private property sound the exploitation or the exploit. Next point is dialectical materialism. Dialectical materialism is a philosophical approach to the reality derived from the writing of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. For Marx and Engels, materialism meant that the material world, perceptible to the sense, has an objective reality independent of the mind of spirit. They did not deny the reality of the mental and spiritual process, but affirmed that the ideas arise. Therefore, only the product and reflection of the materialism condition. Marx and Hegel understood the materialism of the opposite, the idealism, by which they are meant by the theory that treat the matter as the dependent on mind and spirit, or the mind or spirit as a capable of the existing the independently of the matter. Karl Marx and Friedrich Hegel conceptions of the dialectics owes much of the German idealist philosopher Hegel. In opposition of this metaphysical mode of thoughts, which the view think the abstraction which by the its and the thoughts induce with the fixed properties. Hegelian dialectics consider thing is there the movement of the changes interrelations and interactions. Hegel saw the changes and the development as the expressions of the world spirit, are the ideas realizing itself the nature and the human society. For the Marx and Hegels change the inherent in the nature of material world. Marx given the communism means the utopian concept practically implementation by the Lenin in the Russian Revolution in 1917, known as the communism with the Soviet communism. In Russia, communism workers together overthrow the Russian monarchs who ruled the Tsar in the time. This time, and there the leader Lenin for the first time come in this implementation communism ideas on the big scale. Lenin took the some revolutionary step, and this time human rights of this labor were the recognized. Working week was limited to the 8 hours per day and 5 day a week. Before in factory worker work for 12 to 14 hours daily. Women were introduced to the education for the better condition and country's growth. For the farming, the land was taken from the rich landowner and the redistribution among the poor farmer. The factories were the nationalizations. In these the original ideas was the Communist Manifesto said the public will control everything but not government. But is Lenin work is the government main factor. Lenin's communism implementation was different from the Karl Marx ideas. Lenin did not have the ability to criticize because the ban all political parties and make a one party state where the people not allowed to criticize the government any policies. Second, practically implementation by given Stalin. After Lenin died in 1924, after Lenin come and Stalin whose the implementation his own ideas of the communism by different concept of Karl Marx. Stalin communism ideology went away from these Marxist ideologies. Stalin tried to increase the output of the factories. For that he make laborer work more and the workers started 12-hour to 14-hour daily bad condition. The Stalin ideology known as the state capitalism. And third, practically implementation by given Mao from China. His communist ideology was the most more extreme and all the more violent. This ideology called Maoism. And after that, most of the communist countries transformed into dictatorships. Millions of the people die because of the communism. One hand dictatorship like the Stalin, Mao killed the people because the thoughts they are were against the communism. And other hand where Hitler in Germany and Mussolini in Italy, Franco in Spain killed the people their the own countries on the doubt of this them being a communist. Marx's main theories were the critical of the capitalism and his shortcoming. Marx believed that his capitalist system will inevitably destroy itself. The oppressed worker will be alienated and eventually overthrow the master to take control of the means of the production for themselves and enter the classless society. His thoughts are still relevant today. His thoughts have been studied in many ways. There are the difference of the opinion about the principles, but one thing we have to admit that he is one of the most influential thinker of his century. In this section, we complete all concepts related Karl Marx and also the explain the contribution in economy and other field. So we will see you in next video with the next economics. Please stay tuned with Oceanic Economics. Thank you.